The world of higher education is quite divided between schools that provide a pure liberal arts education and schools that are very much more focused on technical or professional education. I think one of the really exciting things about receiving a RISD education is that it combines making and thinking together.
Liberal arts are incredibly important. We're creating art in context of history and language, and to create work that doesn't talk to those things is creating work that doesn't live in our world.
You have your studio classes that you're taking simultaneously to these liberal arts classes, and so they always have some sort of relevance, or they feed into your studio practice, whether consciously or unconsciously, in really interesting ways.
Our liberal arts curricula is provided by 3 departments: History, Philosophy and Social Science, the Department of Literary Arts and Studies, and the Department of Theory and History of Art and Design. More broadly though, we have a science curricula, and we also have a range of concentrations and over 180 electives beyond that.
Liberal arts can give you something that studio can't give you. It gives you inspiration, it gives you new concepts for making a piece.
They try to push the creativity side of the field, whether it be philosophy or English or history. They try to relate to their artist senses when giving out the assignments.
What you learn is how to work with people who have a completely different way of approaching things than what you do. There's something useful to be gained from learning about the world using a different set of tools than what you might have already been familiar with.
The proximity of the art and design discourse in the school makes for an inbuilt and instant interdisciplinarity, strong liberal arts presence within an equally strong art and design context.
One of the main things that we're trying to do in our classes in literary arts and studies is to help students think about how form and content and context all work together. So we're asking students to assess how a cultural object is working, how it has material consequences in the world, and how a particular text might help them understand something about their own practice.
Right now I'm reading Genesis for one of my liberals. So it's like, how does that creation myth fit into the context of human history? I mean, it's immense. To understand that, you can see how people would maybe perceive a work that has an apple in it. You're creating an object that other people have to interpret. You are learning a language, and it's how to create your message clearly, and that translates across any medium.
There's a very deep, long-standing tradition at RISD of forcing oneself to be understood across disciplinary boundaries. And the liberal arts is an area in which people from a range of disciplines all live together. It's precisely that diversity among fields that leads to productive friction.
The way that they connected a lot of dots between things that you may not have realized were influenced by each other. Learning about art history is so directly applicable to how you then create work, and I think my artwork has definitely been greatly improved by just knowing more about the history that I'm creating on top of.
They inform each other. So oftentimes in a studio critique, you might bring up something that you learned in your history of visual culture class that made an impact on you and why you made this piece in studio, or vice versa. I've given presentations about the work that I do in studio in a liberal course in relation to philosophy. And I think it's always really important to keep both of those interests active.
Something that's really fascinating to me about RISD professors in liberal arts is they're very much aware that they're teaching liberal arts to art school students.
I often say one of the reasons I love working here is the students create the culture we live in. The films we watch, the books we read our kids, the clothes we wear, the buildings that we inhabit, and that's in some ways a big responsibility. So part of that responsibility is learning about the world that you're going to have an impact on.
RISD is one of the great places where imagination flourishes or is taught. Alternate ways of practicing, alternate ways of thinking are all acts of imagination.
We want to think about the broader human being that is emerging from this art and design experience, connecting you to history, philosophy, poetry, literature, from all kinds of peoples, from diverse times and places, is not only going to make you a more reflexive, thoughtful, creative person, but it's going to situate you in this world.